Complete the graph. Alright, we have g of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. We already have the axis of symmetry in there at negative 1. We have the vertex at negative 1, negative 4 here. We have the y-intercept at negative 3. Now we just mirror this point. So this mirror over the axis of symmetry will be here. And that is negative 2, negative 3. Step 5, one more point and reflect. So let's use the point 1, comma 0. And then we reflect that over, and we get negative 3, comma 0. So all we did was take 1, plug it into the function, and we got 0 as a result, which is why this point's here. And then finally, we connect the dots, and we have our parabola. Graph g of x equals x squared plus x minus 4. Alright, so let's begin with the axis of symmetry, which is at negative b over 2a. Here we have a and b are both 1, so that just becomes negative 1/2. So we'll draw a dotted line at negative 1/2, like that. Alright, next we have the vertex, which is negative 1/2 plugged into the function to give us the point. So we know that the x-coordinate is going to be negative 1/2, but what's the y-coordinate going to be? We take g of negative 1/2, and then that equals negative 1/2 squared plus negative 1/2 minus 4, and that gives us positive 1/4 minus 1/2, but if I want to do common denominators, that becomes 2/4 minus 4, but that's also known as 16/4. So now we can just do this math. 1 minus 2 gives us negative 1 minus 16, negative 17/4, which is also negative 4.25. So that point is at negative 4.25. So we have negative 4.25. All right, so there's our vertex. Moving on, our y-intercept is when we plug 0 in for x there. So that gives us 0, 0, and negative 4. So 0 and negative 4. All right, the mirror point would be 1/2 to the other side, so there. One more point and reflect. All right, let's choose a point up here. So let's do when x equals 1. So we have, let me change colors. G of 1 equals 1 plus 1 minus 4, negative 2. So we have a point there. Then we can mirror that, reflect it to the other side. So this is 1.5. So we have half and then 1. And so we can draw this out now. And it's something like that. All right, and let's see. Cool. Yeah, there we go. Our graph looks pretty similar. And we can see here all of our numbers are the same. Cool. We chose a different mirror point, but it works. All right. Graph g of x equals negative x squared plus 3x plus 1 using the 6-step process. All right, so our first step is the axis of symmetry, which is at negative b over 2a, which is negative 3 over 2 times negative 1, which is 3 over 2, 1.5. So I'll draw a dotted line at 1.5, like that. All right. Moving on to the second step, we have the vertex. This is the x-coordinate of the vertex, and now we just need to plug it into the function to find out the y-coordinate. So we have g of 3/2 equals negative 3/2 squared plus 3 times 3/2 plus 1. So this equals negative 9/4 plus 9/2 plus 1. So if we change them all to be over 4, we have negative 9/4 plus 18/4 plus 4/4. So that would be 9/4 plus 4, 13/4. 13/4 is a little bit more than 3, 3.25. So we have 3.25 here. So if we have our point at 3/2 and then 3.25, that would be here. All right, next we have our y-intercept, which is when x is 0. So g of 0 equal, and I'm going to move it down here, 0, because we got that, plus 3 times 0 plus 1 equals 1. So the point is at 0, 1 here. All right, our next step is, let's do over here, we have a mirror point. So, we're just going to mirror that point. So we go there, 1.5 times to this side. Next, we're going to choose one more point. Let's choose when x is -1. So, when x is -1. So g of -1 equals -1 squared plus 3 times -1 plus 1. So this equals +1, -1. -1 minus 3 plus 1 gives us -3. So our point here is -1, -3. There. And now we're going to reflect that across. So this is 1, 2.5. So half, 1, 2. And now we're just going to connect the dots. So it looks something like, I could do better than that. All right. Something like that. All right, and let's click and see if we're right. Perfect. We have all of our points there. Graph g of x equals 2x squared plus 9x plus 4 using the 6-step process. All right, so we know that -b over 2a is the axis of symmetry, so that's -9 over 4, which equals -2.25. So I'm going to draw a dotted line at -2.25, which is here. All right, moving on. The vertex is going to be at -2.25 and a y-coordinate that we solve for by plugging this value into the function. So g of -2.25 equals 2 times -2.25 squared plus 9 times -2.25 plus 4. So that equals 10.125 minus 20.25 plus 4, and that equals -6.125. So we got -6.125. So that is this point, and then -6, and then a little bit more. So there's our vertex. All right, moving on. Our y-intercept is when we plug 0 in there. So g of 0 equals 0, 0, and then 4. So it's 0, 4, which is up here. Okay, and then let's do the next step. We're going to reflect this across. So 1, 2, and a little bit. So 1, 2, and a little bit. By a little bit, I mean 0.25. All right, so I've reflected that over there. Next, we are going to choose one more point. So let's choose when x is -1. So g of -1 equals 2 times -1 squared plus 9 times -1 plus 4. So that's 1 times 2 is 2 minus 9 plus 4. So -7 and then -3. So -1, -3 is here. And then I'm going to reflect that across. So we have 1 and 0.25. So 1 and 0.25 gives us 0.5 over there. All right, and then we just draw. All right. So it looks something like that. All right, let's see. Cool. We did it. And we have all of our numbers there.